I'd like to thank everybody for joining the Rules and Legislative Oversight Committee for EA 21-0026. James L. Shea for City Solicitor. Thank you, Mr. Shea, for your willingness to serve the citizens of Baltimore. And I will ask for you to give an introduction, talk a little bit about yourself, and anything else you'd like to add before we move to testimony and questions from the committee.
I'd be happy to start, or would you prefer to have former Mayor Schmoke start to introduce me? Doesn't matter to me. Whichever, you're the chair.
It's up to Mr. Schmoke. What would you like to do?
Thank you. I just have a few comments, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to give. And since I'm not in video, I guess I'd just like to move ahead. It's really an honor and privilege for me to introduce Jim Shea as a nominee for City Solicitor. I've known and worked with Jim for over 40 years, and you can see from his resume the outstanding work that he's done as a lawyer in private practice, and many of the things that he's done as a volunteer for the citizens of Baltimore. I particularly wanted to point out the fact that it was really my honor back in my my second term as mayor to appoint Jim as chairman of the Empower Baltimore Development Corporation. You recall that Baltimore was one of 6 cities to be designated empowerment zone city, and we were probably by many estimations the most successful in our implementation of that program, primarily because of the great partnership that Jim as chairman and Diane Bell McCoy as president, working with community groups and business organizations, brought about great economic development and community development, which provided job opportunities for many of our citizens. As the head of a great law firm, he's worked very hard to bring justice to our community, and I know that he will do an outstanding job as city solicitor. In my 12 years as mayor, I've worked with the city solicitor every day of my tenure, and I know how important it is for the citizens to have an outstanding lawyer in that job, and Jim Shea certainly is an outstanding attorney. So I just wanted to introduce him. Thank you for your consideration, and I strongly support Jim Shea to be a city solicitor.
All right, thank you very much for that. And Mr. Shea, would you like to take it away?
Yes. Thank you, President and Mayor Schmoke. That was very gracious, and I appreciate it very, very much. Pfeiffer and members of the committee, as you all know, I'm sure, I'm Jim Shea, and right now acting city solicitor, and I'm before you and very appreciative to be so for a confirmation into that position. People have asked me why would I take up this particular role at this point in my life, and I'll tell you, there's one reason, and I can say it.
I haven't seen it yet.
I can say it in one word, and the word is Baltimore. I have spent my entire career in Baltimore, and I am devoted to the city, and I want very badly to serve it and the citizens of Baltimore. As Mayor Schmoke indicated, I've spent my entire professional career working out of Baltimore. For 22 years, 40 years in all, my professional career, but for 22 years of that, I was chair or managing partner of law firm Venable. And during my tenure, the firm grew to over 700 lawyers and became one of the top 100 largest firms in the world. We expanded to other cities, New York, LA, San Francisco, Washington, but always, 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 by design, Baltimore was the heart and soul, the core and center of the law firm, and I really wanted it to be that way. Many people inside Baltimore and many more outside of Baltimore told me that a Baltimore law firm couldn't do what Venable has done. but I believed in the lawyers and I believed in Baltimore. It has been a great platform for that firm. And so that you all can be assured, other than a fondness and memory, I have no continuing connection with Venable at all. We have separated for me to take on this task conflict-free. You all know me, I think. I've talked to each of you, and I won't dwell on my resume in any way, but I do want to mention a couple things about my civic pursuits over the last 40 years, because I think they are relevant and tend to prove that what I said about my devotion to the city is true. The first is what Mayor Schmoke has already described, and that is my role as chair for nearly 10 years as chair of the Empower Baltimore Development Corporation. He appointed me. I was appreciative at the time, a brand new managing partner, and I formed a partnership with a truly superb manager and leader, Diane Bell McCoy, who was the president, full-time president of EBMC. We worked hand in glove. There was $100 million of federal assistance that we distributed out throughout Baltimore during those years. We had 6 village centers, 3 on the east side, 3 on the west side, and I got to know the communities of the city well. There were many economic development programs, particularly aimed at small and minority-owned businesses. We lent them money, we invested in equity, we helped them train employees, and although we could not be, even with that relatively large amount of money, transformative, we helped an awful lot of people. And I will tell you that it was the most satisfying effort of my entire career, professional or civic. I also was chair for over 10 years of the Central Maryland Transportation Alliance, advocating for transit and advocating for transit equity throughout this region and particularly in Baltimore City. For 5 years, I was chair of the Downtown Partnership of Baltimore, and again, worked with, in this case, the business community particularly. I was chair and longtime board member of the University System of Maryland, where I again encountered President Schmoke, who became a very successful and productive president of the University of Baltimore. The system, as you know, has 10 universities and colleges in all, and 5 of them are in the greater Baltimore area. And finally, I was reunited in 2019 with Diane Bell McCoy when I joined the board of Associated Black Charities, where I had to resign in order to take the position that I'm now in front of you on today. What are my goals for the law department? There are 3. First, I want to recruit and build a diverse group of effective lawyers. And I want that group to be inclusive. I want the atmosphere and culture to enable those lawyers to flourish in every way. Second, I want those lawyers, this law department, to partner with the policymakers, that is you, the city councilman, the mayor, and the controller. Partner with them to effectuate good policy and to promote accountability and transparency, which I know you all hold near and dear to your own hearts. And third, I want this group to provide excellent legal advice. As one of you asked me to do, in plain English and promptly. We are to enable policy. You set the policy, but we are to enable you to do that. In order to do that, of course, we need to understand the policy, and I need you to help teach us that. Because if we know where you're going, we can help you get there. And when you have a law, it will be enforceable and effective. So those are the 3 particular goals. But let me tell you that over the last now nearly 2 months, there's an overall goal I have. I want to instill in the lawyers in the law department confidence and optimism. Confidence that they have the ability to solve problems no matter how challenging, and optimism that those solutions will improve the lives of the citizens of Baltimore. So in the end, whatever particular goals I might have, those 2 are overriding. Now, there are a couple principles that I intend to follow. First, I and the lawyers in the law department will represent the city as a whole. No particular part, not the mayor, not the city council, not the agencies, all of them and all of them together. Now, this is a task that lawyers are often called upon to do, to gather disparate parts and represent the whole. I've done it many times in my career. I did it as chair of the university system, where we had 10 different universities, each with their own goals, and yet the system itself had goals and opportunities as well. I've done it with groups of clients, and I've done it with clients that have affiliated corporations within them. So I understand both the difficulties and challenges, but the opportunities of a representation of disparate parts uniting as a whole. As I've mentioned, I want the law department to focus on the law, to understand the policy as context, and to be able to provide alternatives to accomplish what the policymaker wants, even if the law prevents a certain mechanism or means by which that might happen. And finally, I want to support a new generation of leaders in Baltimore City. I've seen them, I've worked with some, others I'm getting to know. There is tremendous capacity and energy and ideals in this group of young leaders. And we're very lucky as a city to have you as that part of that group of leaders. A lot of the satisfaction I've gotten over my career is to watch others, particularly younger people, grow and flourish. I hope to do so in this role as city solicitor as well. And I'm, of course, happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shea. I'm not sure if you watched the previous solicitor's hearing from last term, but you actually answered some of the questions I asked him in your opening statement. So thank you for that. Since, like you stated, you're the lawyer for the city as a city solicitor, not just the mayor or council, or an agency, you are the entire city's lawyer. I'd like to do things a little differently this time and ask Richard if you can go through, and we'll start with public testimony and then come back to myself and the members of the council.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. First up as Brown. Okay. As next Brown, you're on. Hello, as next Brown. Okay. Calling user number 2. Calling user number 2. Go ahead, please. Okay. Strike. Carolyn Powers. Carolyn Powers. Carolyn Powers. You're on. Go ahead, ma'am. Okay. Ms. Powers Brown, you're unmuted now.
Richard, you can detect if they have testimony. If they don't have testimony, that's just the next one.
Okay, but we have Mrs. Powers Brown is trying to get in, but she's I'm showing this unmuted. But you hear now, Ms. Brown? Okay, we'll come back. Quick shorter.
Actually, I am just listening in on the testimony. I'm not here to testify. Thank you, though.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Okay. Now we have Dawn Letman. Dawn Letman.
I'm just listening in.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, so
Donna Briscoe. Also just listening. Doesn't want to testify. Doris Wheel.
Oh, I'm just observing, thank you.
Okay. Emily Apio.
I'm here for the newspaper. I'm definitely not testifying.
Thank you. Okay. Anna Rose.
I'm here observing. No testimony.
Okay. Anna Sheehan.
I'm
also
observing.
here just observing. Thank you.
Good. Janet Henderson. Janet Henderson. No response. Justin Conroy.
Just observing.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Lauren Maho.
Just observing.
Okay. Liz Ryan.
Hi, I'm observing.
Okay. Mr. Solicitor, I have a feeling this is a lot of your staff.
I think so. I'm taking notes, though, as to who's on and who's not.
Okay. Lily Glenn. Wait a minute. Sorry. Lily Glenn.
Yes, I'm one of the solicitor staff, just observing.
Mary Keenan.
I'm just observing as well. Thank you.
Okay, now I finally recognize one, my old law school classmate, Michael Como. If you're just observing too, eh?
Hey, I thought the new guy might be taking notes.
Okay. Patrick. Okay. Rita Collins. Robert Ann Binder.
Well, I support the solicitor, but I have nothing to say further.
Thank you, sir.
You're all here.
Ron Travers.
Just observing.
Thank you. Sam Snyder.
Just observing.
Okay. And Mr. Solicitor, you should know Richard Kagan was already on. I elevated him, anticipating something significant.
Got it.
A great scholar. Okay, that's everybody, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much. So that went well. Only one person testified and it was in support, so that's 100% in support. That's a pretty good bar. All right, we will turn it over to the committee and any members of the council who are here. We'll start with the vice president.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. City Solicitor. We had a very good meeting. You are definitely well qualified for the position. But I guess I just have one question. I guess this comes, the timing is perfect. I'd just like to know what is your key to success when communicating with the public?
Well, I have to take lessons from you and the others on the council. I learned how difficult it is. I may have mentioned this to you, Madam Vice President, how difficult it is to run for office and how hard it is. Communication is the key to it. I tried on that side unsuccessfully, but I don't think I was so unsuccessful in communicating. I simply try to tell the person I'm talking to what I see as the truth and the facts. And I try to be responsive. I was told, be careful, don't answer questions directly. Just say what you want to say. I found that difficult to do. If somebody asks me a question, I try to answer it. So perhaps that'll get me in trouble, but that's the way I approach things.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Is that it, Councilman Middleton?
Yes, I'm sorry. Somehow I lost you. Oh, there you are. Yes, that's the only question I have. Thank you.
And I can attest to the same thing, Mr. Shea. I'm sure you remember the room that I was in where there was a question for you that was quite a difficult one. And 99 out of 100 people who got that same question would have answered what they wanted to answer, but you did answer directly how you felt. And so I can attest to what the Vice President was saying.
And I lost every vote in the room.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I lost every vote in the room.
Yes, you did. All right, so we'll move on to the next person. I'm just going to go in order how I see you in my screen. Councilman Torrance. I can't hear you.
Is there somebody that's not muted? Maybe I think that's what it sounds like.
All right, we'll move on to the next one, and if you can just figure out what's going on with your audio. The next one I see here is Councilman Glover.
Hello, and welcome. I was always told to listen to sort of respond, and I'm going to continue to listen to the rest of the council, but I think Councilman Gipsy kind of threw some things your way, and you kind of answered some of the questions that he asked. So I'll just be on the front of this and listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Councilman Glover.
Mr. Solicitor, if I could suggest that you mute yourself while you're listening and then unmute when you want to answer, it may take away some of the feedback.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Costello. Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Shea, I am thrilled that you've been appointed to be the solicitor for the city. I cannot think of someone better in terms of integrity, intellect, capacity, et cetera, to be in this position. I think we're very blessed to have you here. I think Mayor Scott made a great decision in asking you to come on. I'm thrilled that you've accepted this opportunity to serve. Really appreciate our conversations prior to this appointment, as well as your responsiveness. I've only brought one issue to you, but you've been incredibly responsive, and really appreciate it and look forward to working with you. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman.
Councilman Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank you, Acting Solicitor Shea, and I suspect soon that name will change, but you know, we're lucky to have you, lucky to have your expertise and your dedication to our city. You know, the question I have is one, but it's one that I think can be pretty involved. You spoke in your entry about a few issues that you wanted to tackle. You wanted a diverse group of lawyers. You want to partner on good policy, transparency, and accountability. And you wanted to provide excellent legal advice and restore confidence and optimism in the lawyers that work with you. What are some of the things that you're thinking about in order to accomplish those goals? You muted.
Yep. Those are obviously, and they're meant to be comprehensive goals. Starting with the recruiting, that's fundamentally what I did for 22 years at Venable, was to find good lawyers, which isn't that hard, then recruit them and convince them to come. I think, honestly, the law department needs more diversity. I'll say that flat out. So I intend that to be a focus of mine. It's pretty easy to spot good lawyers. It's hard to recruit them to come to your world. I think the opportunity in the city for a young lawyer, or even a not so young lawyer, is enormous. The experience that you get in this environment is irreplaceable. You can't find it anywhere else. So while we don't have tons and tons of money to throw around, we have a much better thing. We have a great goal and a great opportunity, and I'm confident that we can recruit effectively to the law department. As to the next goals of partnering, what we need to do there is take each request, and I have to tell you, I feel like I've been drinking from a fire hose for 8 weeks. There are more things to get your teeth into than can ever, honestly, be something I could cover. But each idea is very well meant, and the policies that are being pursued that include transparency and accountability are terrific, and they come in many, many different packages. But they're the trick of a lawyer. The skill of a lawyer is to understand what the client, you, want, and then to try to figure out how that can be accomplished in a way that is enforceable in court if the policy is challenged. So that's an everyday proposition, but I want our lawyers never to say no and stop there. They can say no, but they have to follow it up with, have you thought about trying it this way? Or I think you can accomplish it this way. And once in a blue moon, they'll have to say no, and you really can't accomplish that. Let's see what else you might be able to accomplish. So that's an iterative process of back and forth. And the final thing about instilling confidence, there's an esprit de corps, and I think the whole city needs it. The whole government needs it. And that's why I'm so excited about the young leadership, because you all innately, you're successful, you're ahead of your time in terms of age, the age line. You have the confidence, you have the spirit, and we need to instill everybody with that confidence and that optimism, because you can't solve problems if you go into it, oh, well, this is really hard, and oh, we just don't do it right. Baloney. A lot can be accomplished, not everything every time, but if you don't have that optimism and you don't have that confidence, you can't get there. So I haven't given you enough specifics, but I hope every day to have 10 examples for you of each of the three things.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
Okay, Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues. It's good to see you, Mr. Acting Solicitor, again. So one, I think I would reiterate what everyone else has already said. I think we've been off to a great start in our working relationship, in both trying to gain insight into the law department's operations, as well as trying to partner on things impacting the 8th district. So I do want to appreciate your willingness to jump right in and get to work with us. One of the things that we talked about when we met, but I wanted to have to reiterate the discussion here, was around just what is your vision for a stronger collaboration and stronger working relationship with the law department and the council. As I think everybody's aware, over a few terms there was some tension between the two, and feeling like that the law department was with the mayor and the council was sort of a separate thing. Yeah, if you want to jump in on that, I think we talked about it a little bit there, but I do want to bring it to this forum that your vision for a really strong partnership with the city council, and making sure that both we're honoring the city charter, doing the right thing, but also moving policy that's legal and may not necessarily always align with the vision of the mayor.
Fried chicken tenders.
Yes, that is a perfect question. And my experience has been, I want my clients, and the city council is our client, to look at me as their warrior, their advisor, their representative. There has to be an identity. I always use the word we when I'm talking to a client. And
the Colonel's good old 13 spices in the flour mix. Spicy recipe.
Okay. I'm getting just a little feedback, but
the host is going to be muting everybody's line except for yours.
Okay. It has to be we. The pronoun has to be we, and that's something that is a cultural thing, and we have to instill that in all the lawyers. It means listening. It means caring. It means being optimistic. It means being confident, and person by person, issue by issue, step by step, we're going to accomplish it. Look, I learned at Venable, when I first started, the firm was relatively small and frankly struggling a bit. And if I tried to look to the end of the line and say, well, I want in 22 years to do this, this, and this, I never would have made it. What I did is I came into work every day, one day by one day, one brick by one brick, one problem, one client, one solution by one. And if you do that and you stick to it, you get there. And so in the relationship between the city council and the law department has to be built that way. There's no magic potion. I can't take a magic wand and touch each member of the law department on the head or the shoulders and say, thou shalt. But every exchange we have has to follow those principles of collaboration, of partnership, of we-ness, and like all good relationships, an occasional bit of tension. That's not to be feared. That is how real productive things happen. So controllable tension is part of the mixture, but it is an everyday, many times a day proposition.
Chair, that was the question I had.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions, if you don't mind. Mr. Shea, thanks for coming before us. I appreciate it, and obviously appreciate all that you've done for our city. I want to follow up on Councilman Burnett's question and get an answer around, you had said earlier that, you're sort of our client and the mayor's client and the city's client. There are going to be times where the policy is not going to be in agreement. And we need to know, as the council, that you're going to give us advice based on what is the law and not just a policy decision. And I wonder if you can comment on that, please, and give us your commitment to that.
You're exactly right. And as you and I had an exchange this week, although we seem to be disagreeing, I was agreeing with you. Our role is not to persuade you on policy issues or even take a position on policy. That's up to you, and it's up to the mayor, and the mayor and the city council will occasionally butt heads on that. That's between you and the mayor. But both of you are entitled to my legal advice, which will be the same to both, that you can do this. In the case we were talking about, the General Assembly has to act on this part. That's true if the mayor asked me. It's true if you ask me. But when the positions become irreconcilable on the law, policy is going to be, there are going to be differences. But if there are irreconcilable differences on what the law is, and that can happen, it's rare. The law, as you know, is not so cut and dry that A is always right and B is always wrong. When we have that kind of difference on the law, we're lucky because we have counsel for the city council now. And that's a good thing because I've often worked with opposing counsel. And it might be that I'm saying something that the city council likes and the counsel for the city council is saying something the mayor likes. That's not the point. The point is that we have opposing points of view that needs representation on both sides. And we need a collaborative explanation to those who are listening. And it might be the old lawyer on the one hand, this, on the other hand, that. But if that's the way the nebulous world is, you're entitled to know that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Chair, can I ask my other question, please?
Sure.
So you had also said earlier that you will, when, as much as possible, be able to have the law department staff, if they say, you know, based on something that we want to do, that it's not possible, that there will be some sort of alternative. I realize that you're just stepping in, so I will come back to the law department with my two big things that I wanted to do this year, or this beginning of the term, when the law department said, no, you can't do that. And that was to move the tax sale and also to have payment plans if people are arrears on their taxes. And part of it is that, you know, I actually have to have state action in order to get some of that to happen. But I do hope that we can, moving forward, have that kind of dialogue where, you know, there may be some alternative and not just, you know, no, you can't do that. So I wonder if you could comment a little bit on, you know, expand a little bit more on what are those kinds of situations where there would be, you know, and what that's going to look like, because,
right.
You know, providing just here's some amendments that you will then, you know, do it from legal sufficiency is one thing. But, you know, here's another part of the law that you might want to look at is a different thing. So I don't know if there's a solid answer, but I wonder if you can comment a little bit about that.
Well, it's really an incredible coincidence. I've looked at both of those issues in the last 24 hours, and you should call me. We should have a discussion on what the alternatives are. I'm hesitate to give it to you in the middle of a public forum. Not that I have any secrets.
No, and I wasn't asking that.
I know, but that would waive whatever attorney-client relationship we've got. But on both issues, I think there are some additional steps we can take, and I really ask you to give me a call. And we'll work with the lawyers who initially advised you. In fact, I've talked in both cases to the people who did. So I feel on pretty firm footing. Give me a call. I think there are things we can do. I really do. I could be wrong and I may fail, but we're going to try.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Councilman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Shea, one, I talked to you about your processes in the law department, and I use an example who about 2 years ago, police raided a lady house. It was the wrong house. It took them 3 years to pay her back for her door. Will your office now start looking at cases that could move pretty fast in terms of resident? This lady was a senior, so she was on a fixed income. It had to take them 3 years to repay her back her money for her door, which was the wrong house. I'm asking, can that be as part of your priority, those things that can move faster? Because a lot of times in the law department, a lot of residents I talk to, and I'd like to work with you on that with our community to to explain to them what the law department does, what their role is, because a lot of times they seem to be not friendly to the community. So I like to do that. Two is I just want to see if we can get a commitment from you when your lawyers look at these cases, they look at something that they can move pretty fast, because there's no way that senior had to wait 3 years to get her money back for a door, and she's on a Social Security. And I'm not saying the past administration was like that, but I like to see the law department be more kind of community friendly to our residents here in Baltimore.
There I am. On his face, Councilman Stokes, that's not excusable. In order to resolve that particular instance, which is now, I hope, taken care of, I'd have to know a lot more. So I'm not going to try, and you're not asking me to try and go back and redo that one. What's done is done. But I will tell you that that's not acceptable, the facts that you relay. And we'll do everything in our power to make sure that doesn't happen. You can help when you hear about things that don't seem right. Sing out. There's no benefit in not communicating your distress at things like that. And I'm finding actually that your colleagues are pretty good at picking up issues to bring to me, and that's fine. As to outreach to the community, the way I like to do that is that's on me. And when you want the law department to explain something to a group, I'm here to do that. It's harder for the lawyers that within the department to do that for a lot of reasons. And it ends up being a difficult and frankly, sometimes not a successful effort. But when it gets to the point where a community group needs someone to explain what the law is and why it's this way, that's my job. I'm on the job. Give me a call and we'll do it.
And real quick, I'm glad you opened it with a statement you talked about, because I have a bill on the council, systemic racism. And I'm going to be honest with you. I want people in the law department look like me. I want people in the law department, brown people also. And unfortunately, I know that has not always been there, but I'm glad you understand that that's something that got to be addressed also. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now that we've gone through each council member that's here, do any other council members have any additional questions? Go ahead, Councilwoman Ramos.
I don't think we got the chance to hear from Councilman Torrance yet, and then I'll go after him.
Thank you. You got the audio going over there, Councilman? Not really. No.
He's showing being on, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair. So let me try this. Okay. Try now, Councilman.
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Perfect. Thank you, Larry. Mr. Shea, thank you for being willing to serve the city of Baltimore again in a new capacity. My question is really simple. It's a conversation that we had when we first met. I have a number of residents who are graduates of Coppin State University. It is an anchor institution in the 7th Council District. And I just want you, for the public's perspective, to clarify your role as the chair of the University of Maryland system and your role in the settlement for the actual historically Black colleges and universities, so that the public is clear about your stance and how you approached it. Thank
you. Good.
Thank you, Councilman. We did talk about it, and my relationship with the presidents of Coppin when I was chair, both President Avery and President Thompson, as well as at Bowie and University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, was strong. President Berman, President Bell often came to me, and we often discussed issues of importance. So I believe I learned in very great detail how important HBCUs are to this state and our residents, and frankly, how underfunded they are. they didn't spend a lot of time complaining, but they made the point and I understood it, and that's absolutely true. And therefore, I was an early advocate for a substantial settlement in cash. I was advocating for it long before Governor Hogan proposed it, and the amounts I was talking about, both before and after his proposal, were substantially more than Governor Hogan's position. And frankly, we're probably a little higher than the number that the General Assembly has come to and is on the brink of passing. I checked just recently, and I think that bill looks like it's in very, very good shape. The only issue that I think you're referring to was a matter of tactics, is how best to get there. Now, in that role as chairman, I was involved as tactics. By the way, the university system was not a party to the lawsuit that gave rise to the settlement. We have 3 HBCUs within the system. So we were rooting as much for the plaintiff as we were for the defendant in that case. And that's the way I conducted the university system. The question of tactics related to an arcane issue of what's called program duplication, which a number of presidents, including African-American presidents, did not want to pursue. So that particular tactic was not one that I favored, and frankly is not one that Attorney General Frosch favored either. But it's all mooted. For a long time, that program duplication had nothing to do with the cash settlement. And I, for a long time, have favored that approach. And now we're on the eve of exactly what I said about 10 years ago that we should do, which is to transfer a substantial amount of money to the HBCUs. Still not enough, but it's one step in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. That's all I have. I yield back to the chair.
Okay. Councilwoman Ramos.
Yes, thanks. I wanted to follow up on Councilman Stokes' question. We do have residents who, for some reason, seek reimbursement or something like that from the city. Sometimes it has to do with the basement backups. Sometimes it has to do with, in my constituent, a couple of constituents' cases where they've done some work on, the plumbing and, whatever it is. But there's been a history of the law department saying, nope, city's not liable. And there may be some of that where the city's not liable and it's something that the homeowner has or some other reason. But we want to make sure that our residents are getting a fair shake here, and that, indeed, that there should be, and we'll hear in the hearing in the next couple of weeks that there were lots of basement backups, and then it was found that it actually wasn't the city. Well, how can it not be the city? There's things happening there. So I just want you to comment on that piece, because it's not a policy piece, but it certainly is a function of city government that I think our residents are certainly frustrated with sometimes, in terms of trying to get any reimbursements or that kind of thing when something might have been clearly done on the other side. So we just want to hear that you're going to give, that the law department's going to really look at the case and not always think, no, it's not. So thanks if you comment on that. Thank you.
Well, obviously I can, and you're not asking me to resolve particular matters, but I think the point that Councilman Stokes made at the beginning is a key one. And that is, if it can't take a long time. These things have to be acted on with some dispatch. So even if the answer is negative, if you know what it is within a reasonable amount of time, there are ways to deal with that. You have rights of appeal and protest and so forth. So I think moving with some dispatch is critical. And I think, again, we get back to the role of a lawyer. You size up the problem, you call the shot, you listen to the other side, you listen to people who don't agree with you, and you try to come to the proper balanced response. And you have to do it quickly. It's not an easy job. It can be quite painful. But that's the kind of excellence that I want the law department to have. And I'll tell you another thing, is that optimism and confidence, that matters too. It's not always true the city is wrong. It's not always true that the employees of one agency or another haven't done it right. We ought to have the confidence to see when we're wrong and the courage to call it when we're right, and do that without a lot of delay. And it will never be perfect, but we can be a lot better.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else have any questions? Any other members of the committee with any questions? No? Okay. All right, so we'll start wrapping up. Mr. Shea, thank you so much for being with us today and for your willingness to serve the citizens of Baltimore. I'm sure you're going to be working more hours than you've ever worked before, and you'll be making less money than you've ever made before. So thank you for that. We definitely need people with experience and that level of dedication who are willing to sacrifice to help the city. Certainly what we heard today and what you had just mentioned is really is critical to moving forward as a city, to make sure that when we do something wrong, we deal with it, and we do with it in an expeditious fashion. Like Councilman Stokes, I've been working for a long time on a very small issue in my district that was as a result of trees being cut, and it fell on a car, and for some reason it's dragged on for a long time. And so issues where we know we're wrong, let's address them, and issues where we know we're right, let's not make the mistakes of the past and just pay out all this money. And because those are the taxpayers' funds, and we need to protect those. And so times when we're right, I hope that you will fight for the agencies and fight for the city, and not just open up the checkbook like what's been done for many years in the past. And so I will give you the opportunity for any closing statements that you have.
Well, let me just say that my embarking on this is not a sacrifice in any way. It's a great opportunity for me to do what all citizens should do, which is give their all to the community. And I'm just honored to take on these responsibilities. And I'll tell you, the responsibilities are awesome. We all face them. You know the problems that we face. And the opportunity to solve the problems is a great opportunity, but it's tough. I'm very appreciative of the City Council giving me the hearing and the mayor giving me the opportunity to see what I can do. So it's just a big thank you to all of you.
Sure. And with that, I will open the floor for anyone who would like to make a motion. Go ahead, Councilman Conway.
Mr. Chair, I move we accept Jim Shea's nomination.
I second.
Second. Council Vice President got me.
Yeah. So motion by Councilman Conway, seconded by Vice President Middleton. We'll do a roll call vote.
Okay. All right. On a favorable motion, Chairman Schleifer.
Yes.
Chairman Schleifer votes aye. Mr. Burnett.
Yes.
Mr. Burnett votes aye. Mr. Conway.
Aye.
Mr. Conway votes aye. Mr. Costello.
Aye.
Mr. Costello votes aye. Vice President Middleton.
Aye.
Vice President Middleton votes aye. Member Ramos.
Aye.
Member Ramos votes aye. Mr. Torrance.
Aye.
Mr. Torrance votes aye. Mr. Chairman, there are 7 votes in the affirmative, no negative. We can go to second reader at Monday's meeting.
And we will do that. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Mr. Shea. And you will now move to the full floor of the council. We are now in recess. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Adjourned.